It's looking pretty grim for any manufacturer of battery electric vehicles that is not based in China. If you import a Chinese EV into America, it immediately gets hit with a 100% import tariff. So that effectively doubles the price if you want to import a Chinese EV and sell it in the US market. And despite that, they're still cheaper than any EV made here in America. So what is the United States government going to do about it? Today, we're going to dive into that. If you guys like industry auto news, if you like the EV end of industry, I try to update you guys once or twice a week on the EV end of things because it's always changing, the shifting sands, the blowing winds, the fickleness of the market that is electrified. It's just a lot of fun to talk about. This 100% duty on Chinese EVs will take effect September 27th, so this week. And why is the US doing this? Well, they believe that there are unfair trade practices going on inside of China. Who would have guessed? Now, if you look at Europe, they just slapped Chinese EVs with tariffs as well. Not 100%. It's anywhere from like 15 to 35, somewhere in that range, depending on the brand. They've done their own research and own investigations to find out which brands are getting the most governmental help unfairly. That's happening in Europe. Make sure to watch my video that I just posted about the European EV market. It's going down while hybrids go up, gas cars go down, diesel goes down in Europe, and plug-in hybrids go slightly down. So the only thing doing well in the European market year over year seem to be hybrids. In the United States market, of course, hybrids are doing well. EVs are still growing year over year, I believe. Our market's behind the European market in terms of electrification. So it doesn't mean we'll exactly follow what is going on in Europe, but we'll see some ramifications happen in the US with a downturn of EV demand for sure. Now, we don't have SAIC, we don't have Chery, we don't have BYD, we don't have, Li Auto. There's so many Chinese automakers out there. And then you have, of course, all the joint ventures with the Japanese automakers, the German automakers, as well as the domestic automakers like Ford, Chevy, and Dodge. Those all exist in China, and some of those vehicles get exported to Southeast Asia, but we really don't see hardly any of that here in the United States. Polestar 2 is one that comes to mind that is made over in China, imported in the United States. According to Nikkei Asia, EVs made up more than 10% of the US sales in July. In China, the ratio is about 50%, well above the global average of about 20%. Well, the global average of 20% EV still seems really hard to believe, but you got to remember, China is the largest auto market by far. And so their 50% really brings up the average. So let's get into the meat and the potatoes. US lacks both EV charging infrastructure and models in mass market price range. All right, we don't see like a Toyota Corolla EV for around 25 grand, for example. And then you have these Chinese automakers like BYD draw on extensive domestic supply chains that help them compete in a crowded market, offering EVs priced under $25,000. Tesla has not broken into the sub $30,000 price range yet, for example. This little EV, the BYD Seagull, it's kind of like a Chevy Spark in size, I would say, something like that, or what the old Yaris used to be in some ways. If you convert it straight to US dollars, it costs $12,000 in China. So you double that, you get to $24,000. And they could bring this in, sell it for $24,000. Here's the thing. At $24,000, you can get a Corolla hybrid, which I would rather have over this. You could have a Sentra, which I may or may not take over this. It just depends on if you need a city vehicle or a do-it-all vehicle. I would not want to own this for any other reason other than a city car. And that's where EVs shine the best with efficiency and their Achilles heel, which is range and recharging. You don't have to worry about it too much. If it's just a city vehicle, you can plug it in at home. And so the government supposedly is saying, hey, you can build in Mexico, but you're still going to be hit with a tariff because it's a Chinese company. Washington also wants to cut the reliance on China for batteries. Good luck with that. U.S. import of Chinese-made batteries totaled over $6 billion in January through June, first half of this year. And in last year, totality was $13 billion, and it was a 40% increase from 2022, a six-fold jump over 3 years. It's a lot of money going to China here. The U.S. is going to keep putting these tariffs on Chinese-made batteries because the U.S. wants to diversify supply chains and reduce reliance on China. But here's the big problem. There is no progress or very little progress in the EV supply chain here in North America. General Motors is postponing the start of their battery factory in the US and Indiana by about a year. Panasonic has lowered its production targets for EV batteries, mainly in North America, by 30%. This could be Nissan, this could be Toyota, this could be Honda, we don't know exactly, but a Japanese automobile executive in North America said, the reality now is that there is no supply chain in the United States for mining and processing battery materials. China has it on lockdown. And so China's going to hit back. China will make necessary measures to resolutely defend the interests of the Chinese companies, and went on to say the tariffs will disrupt global supply chains but not contribute to resolving U.S. trade deficits and industrial competitiveness problems. If they could still import these EVs for $25,000 or whatever and still make, I don't even know if they're making money on them, but just screwing up the entire U.S. domestic market for price competitiveness, all that stuff. What is the U.S. going to do even with the tariff? Are they just going to put more tariffs? No, here's the answer. The U.S. is proposing a ban on Chinese vehicle software and hardware. I mean, if this goes through, essentially no vehicle made in China can get brought back to the United States for sale. That would include the Lincoln Nautilus. That would include the Polestar 2, or even the Volvo EX30 if they ever decide to bring that into America. So I start asking questions because let's say you have a Volvo and Polestar, let's say they're made in Belgium or Gothenburg, Sweden, and they have Chinese hardware and software, and like, that's the thing. All these cars, every single car made in the world has Chinese hardware, and I don't know about software. I highly doubt that, but all of them have hardware to some degree for their cars, regardless if they're EVs or not. Also, this includes Russian-made hardware and software for connected vehicles. At this point, everything's a connected vehicle. They all connect up to the cloud. They all sell our data, and that's just the way of the world. You know, they want to nickel and dime us for subscriptions for remote start and all these other ticky-tack things going on. Every single car is connected at this point. The U.S. Commerce Department on Monday proposed prohibiting key Chinese software and hardware in connected vehicles on American roads due to national security concerns. Yes, there could be national security concerns, but really it comes down to the special interest of the companies in America, the car companies in America. I think that's the number one thing here. National security, I always question our government's motives about national security, but when it comes to business security and protecting the ingrained businesses in America that have been funding the government for a long time, I think this is about saving them instead of this general safety of the public. I thought this was also interesting. We'll end with this. Northvolt is cutting 1,600 jobs as Europe's EV hopes stall. This is cutting about a fifth of their global workforce. Too much Chinese competition. That's, again, a recurring theme in this video. Sluggish EV demand. We talked about that earlier this week on how EV sales were down, I think, around 60% in Germany. They're also suspending plans for a large expansion at their Northvolt factory, and I'm going to butcher this, Skellefteå, northern Sweden. They already mentioned earlier this month they would stop producing cathode active material, a crucial battery component, stepping back from its original mission to be an all-in-one shop offering everything from material production and battery making to end-of-life recycling. So they've thrown out their whole identity at this point because they cannot be price competitive against the Chinese automakers. or should I say the Chinese battery makers, which in some cases are the automakers if you look at BYD. And China controls 85% of global battery cell production. Good luck competing against that. They have a monopoly here on battery cell production. They have the whole supply chain worked out. They got it figured out. They've beaten everyone to the punch by a couple decades, it seems like, at this point. And so it seems like, honestly, you kind of have this crazy dual energy focus right now. You have 85% of the EVs right now being powered by Chinese batteries, and you can base your transportation off those Chinese batteries, or you can be a slave to the oil companies and keep making petrol cars. Ideally, you have the best of both worlds. You don't want to rely too much on one or the other. And that's why hybrids make a little bit of sense. You really reduce your dependence on tons of oil and petrol because you can double your fuel economy, in some cases more if it's a plug-in hybrid. And then you don't need the amount of batteries that you would have in a fully battery electric lineup. What Toyota's thing is, okay, for one BEV, you can make 6 plug-in hybrids or something like 70 normal hybrids. It could be more. Might be 1 to 6 to 90 ratio. Anyways, you can make a ton of hybrids for one battery electric from the same battery resources. So if you want to be less dependent on Chinese battery supply chain, then hybrids are an answer too. So this is a very interesting topic that keeps changing. You can see the global auto battery market share. CATL has 37%. BYD, which is a one-stop shop. They make their own LFP battery cells and they make their own cars. LG Energy Solution out of Korea, right? SK Innovations out of Korea. Calb is another Chinese manufacturer. This one is Samsung, another Korean, and then Panasonic being the last large Japanese manufacturer of batteries. Yes, you have Korean and Japanese influences here, okay? But they are still dependent on the Chinese supply chain for batteries to make their product. All right, they're not completely independent from my understanding. They still rely on, for the most part, the Chinese supply chain to make their own batteries, even if they make them in Japan or Korea or in the United States. Sweden is not going to bail out Northvolt here, so you can throw that out of the window. It's very interesting to see what's going on in the auto market. It's a change. Every day I wake up, there's something new developing. And like I said, if you enjoy this content, smash the like button. There's other videos I need to get to, so I'll catch you in the next one. And have a great day. Peace out.